adevărată găzduirea, înalt și somnoros. Răcoare ne cuprinde și toată mănăstire ne pare un rai frumos.
This road leads to New-Neamts Monastery of Holy Ascension. For 1 century and a half, it stands on a hillside on the right side of Dniester River, between the towns of Bender and Tiraspol. It stands on state, political and Christian crossroad. For 1 century and a half, people come here in search of spiritual healing, solace and solitude. Its golden domes are visible from afar to those approaching the village of Kitskane, after the name of which the monastery is also known as Kitskane Monastery. Believers and tourists are coming here from near and afar. Monastery is open both on weekdays and holidays. However, the monastic life, services, prayers, sacraments, obedience is almost invisible to an outsider. Only a few solitary figures in long black robes will remind you that you are on the territory of an acting monastery. It got its present shape at the beginning of the last century, and it was built almost 50 years. The monastery's history, a complex and dramatic one, is closely linked with the history of region. It has undergone through various events, wars, destruction, persecution, but the story of its creation is truly unique. It all began in the mid of 19th century, when Alexander Cuza came to power in Romania. The Orthodox Church was subordinated to the state and subjected to cruel persecution. However, by the will of God, due to these events, a new monastery appeared on Orthodox map of Moldova, called Neamts, after its spiritual mother, Lavra Neamts. This is one of the oldest monasteries in Romania. For 5 centuries, Lavra enjoyed the patronage of Moldovan hospodars. It was granted many lands and estates. But during the reforms of Alexander Cuza, all these were taken back. The assets were sold. A rich library was destroyed. One of the Lavra's monks wrote then, "The mind gets turbid, the heart bleeds when one sees the robbery of what was collected over the centuries." Unable to stand it any longer, the monks began to leave the Lavra, heading in all directions, Greece, Ukraine, Bessarabia. In autumn 1861, the Lavra was left by 32 monks who secretly crossed the river Prut. They hoped to found a new monastery in Bessarabia, then part of the Russian Empire, on the land donated to Lavra by Hospodar Alexandru cel Bun. They carried the most precious wealth, a copy of the miraculous icon of Our Lady of Neamts, and 2 suitcases with books rescued by Lavra's confessor and librarian Father Andronic, and which later became the basis of the famous New-Neamts library. Lavra's lands in Bessarabia were ruled in those years by hieromonk Theophan, an extraordinary and significant personality for New-Neamts monastery. By secular name Theodor Christa, the father Theophan took monastic vow at 19 years old. It was said about him, an educated man, full of zeal for God and love for people. He lodges a petition with Archbishop of Chisinau on the establishment of a new monastery on the territory of Bessarabia. In the morning, the New-Neamts monks awake to the sound of wooden beater like the monks of Neamts Lavra many centuries in a row. The time, 5:30. From 6 to 9, worship. Bells ring in the holidays. On weekdays, just one morning ring. By the way, the bells are the very same that were set almost 100 years ago. And these are villages of Kopanka and Kitskani, where in the middle of 19th century arrived the monks who fled from Lavra and with the help of God, nourished by faith and hope, began to build up a new convent. But first it was a long winter in a village near Chisinau, where 32 fugitive monks lived settled in just in 2 houses, feeding themselves with corn porridge and having 4 sheepskins and 4 pairs of boots. There have been 3 years of the struggle of Father Theophan for the monastery's right on Lavra's estates in Kopanka and Kitskani. Indeed, all these lands have always been at geopolitical crossroads. They passed not just once from one state into the hands of another. Finally, multiple trips of Father Theophan to St. Petersburg were crowned with success. On January 13th, 1864, Emperor Alexander II approved the project on establishing New-Neamts Monastery Priory of Holy Ascension. The oldest building on the territory of monastery, Church of Saint Nicholas, named so in honor of Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker. It was built 30 years before the foundation of the monastery, based on resources of Kitskani parishioners. Precisely in this small church, on the eve of Christmas, 1.5 centuries ago, the first monastic service was accomplished. And precisely around it, the construction of New-Neamts Monastery was developed, which started immediately after the imperial decree by Father Theophan, who was unanimously elected abbot by the monastery brotherhood. In monastery, the first step was to construct fraternal structure, a long single-story building with cells for 2 people, because monks had to live somewhere, and the monastic community was constantly growing. Then it was laid and consecrated the foundation of the Holy Cross Church refectory, which was built more than 10 years. Why refectories in many monasteries are situated right in the churches? Here they will answer you this. God created angels and men. He feeds angels with Holy Spirit, and our temporal food is likened to the gifts of Holy Spirit. Therefore, before a meal, one should pray and cross oneself in gratitude for the gift. Gracious traditions of receiving the food in temple exist in those monasteries where such possibilities exist. And this is possible in New-Neamts since the construction of the Holy Cross refectory. Twice a year, in the Cross Sunday of Lent and the feast of the Exaltation of the Lord's Cross, the tables are taken out of the refectory and the worship services are held. 2 main temples are towering in the center of monastic complex. Amazing beauty of Ascension Church and 5 bells Assumption Church. First, back on times of Theophan Abbot, the Ascension Cathedral was erected. This and the chapel were designed by St. Petersburg architect, whose name remained unknown. Mural of the temple, made in tradition of Nestorov and Serebryakov art school, was restored at the end of last century. It is restored with care and love, following the fragments and remnants of ancient murals, which heavily suffered during the closure of the monastery. And today, similarly to the times of 100 years ago, the temple walls are decorated with the same faces of saints and same scenes from scriptures. The Temple Iconostasis is a new one, made in the 90s of last century, and next to this, the ancient reliquary, stored particle relics, sent back in 19th century by Patriarch of Constantinople and Jerusalem as gift to New-Neamts Monastery. Patron saint of monasticism has long been regarded the Virgin Mother, so the icons with her depiction are particularly venerated in the monastery. New icon of Neamts Mother of God. Newly painted icon Virgin Mary's Assumption. Kozelshansk Mother of God icon, after the place where it first showed her miraculous power. After the death of Father Theophan, the work and care for the further settlement of the monastery were took over by his friend and assistant, Hieroschema monk Andronik, who became second abbot of the monastery. During his times, the library was built, which is now the monastery museum. It contains old pictures and worship objects. Two relics are among the exhibits: neck stone of Father Theophan and the Gospel of Father Andronik. The library is now in the new building, which also includes printing and sewing workshops. The new library, continuing the tradition of Father Andronik, the monastery began to collect recently, but it already has about 10,000 volumes. Many books come from Moscow Patriarchate. Some are printed in its own printing press, some are presented by parishioners. The famous Andronik library, collected by him in 20 years, was partially removed during the closure of the monastery in the National Archives, but mostly just stolen. Some of the documents and valuable books were returned to the monastery. Ancient books and manuscripts of 18th-19th century are the pride value of monastic library. Time-veiled ancient volumes are contemporary of the monastery, witnesses of its uneasy history. Father Andronik was abbot of the monastery just 8 years. After his death, the abbot was Father Hermann. At his 19, he went to Arthur's mountain and took monastic vow. During the Russian-Turkish War, he goes to front as male nurse and was awarded a medal. It was precisely in times of Father Hermann when monastery acquires its present form. 2 additional cell shelters are constructed, as well as stone workshops, but what is most important, the 4th, Ascension Cathedral and the bell tower. White, blue, beautiful 5 bells temple is also known as Winter One, according to the time when worship is held here. Executed in strict and calm post-Byzantine style, the cathedral was built very quickly, in just 1 year. At the beginning of last century, the first service was held there. Unlike the Ascension Church, the ancient wall painting of the Assumption Church suffered much stronger during the closure of monastery. The frescoes were actually destroyed and it didn't seem possible to restore them. So, At the end of last century, walls and vaults of the church were painted in hue by local artist Eugen Zhikov, buried in Monastery's cemetery. He also painted the top three lines of new carved iconostasis made in one of the art studios in Romania. Also, at that time, a reliquary was made for the temple, in which the relics, mostly of saints from Kiev Pechorsk Lavra, were placed. In the Church of Assumption, two monastic sanctuaries are stored. One of them is the staff of Reverend Elder Paisi Velenchkovsky, who is considered the heavenly patron of monastery. This staff of Reverend Paisi Velichkovsky is preserved in our monastery as sacred object. He was given to us in early 19th by the Bishop of Donetsk. One of its staffs, the Reverend Paisi, delivered to his disciple, then abbot of Sophrony Desert. Maybe this is the same staff. Another monastic sanctuary, the New-Neamts miraculous icon of Our Lady. Nearly 30 years, while monastery was closed, the icon was hidden by one of its former inhabitants. During those years, the paints became so dull and dark that faces of Virgin and Savior were hardly discernible. But after returning to the monastery, it started miraculously to lighten and self-renew. Since then, the icon became famous because of its miracles. The worship services in monastery, since its foundation, are being held in two languages, Moldovan and Russian, according to the precepts and rules of Reverend Elder Paisi. The monastery's male choir also sings in two languages. On Sundays and holidays, the services are held by current abbot of monastery, Archimandrite Paisi Chekan. Real decoration and handmade miracle of the monastery became the 5-storied bell tower gate, built as Dormition Church in the beginning of last century. It was not destroyed by war, earthquake, or by the years of persecuting the faith and church. To restore the bell tower to its original beauty, it took considerable time and effort. It is often compared to the famous bell tower of the Trinity Sergeyevsk Lavra. The New-Neamts tower ascends 70 meters into the sky, being the highest bell tower in Moldova. Its arches were repainted at the end of the last century by Romanian icon painters. Today also, the bright faces of saints and scenes from Scripture meet everyone entering the monastery through the main bell gate. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one who asks receives, and one who seeks finds, and to one who knocks it shall be opened. 2 layers of bell tower are occupied by belfry. 5 different sized bells, molded in Russia, ring for more than 100 years. The big one, weighing over 8 tons, immortalizes the name of martyr Metropolitan Seraphim. During his time, the bells were raised and consecrated. And from the top layer of bell tower, a breathtaking view opens, far, far away, almost over the horizon, in all world directions. And it seems the heaven itself is closer to the earth here. 1914, the year New-Neamts completes its construction and First World War starts. The 20th century has relentlessly paced through the monastery by all its dramatic history: 2 world wars, redrawing of geopolitical maps, the change of state regimes. But with God's help, the monastery survived the mobilization of monks to the war, the looting, the merciless bombing of February 1918, when a few weeks over 300 bombs exploded on the monastery territory, and the turbulent times with Romania and confiscation of almost all lands and assets at the end of the Second World War, and the arrest of the abbot Father of Xenti. After the war, the Soviet authorities were trying not to oppress the church, and the monastery started to restore gradually. But in the early 60s, the state policy has changed again, and New-Neamts Monastery, like many others, was closed. Looking today at a lovingly tended convent, all in green and flowers, a linden alley, with artfully carved and tree with figures of ascetics and novices, on bright temples and sparkling domes. It is hard to believe that just 2 decades ago, on this land, within these sacred walls, were located a drugstore of Odessa military district, a tuberculosis hospital, a cinema, a club, and in bell tower, in front of which a cannon was set, there was installed a museum of military glory. In 30 years of separation from the church, the monastery was severely damaged. Much has been destroyed and looted. But the monastery seemed to be guarded and protected from above. When the new owners tried to pluck the crosses from Temple Dome, the rope stretched from the cross on the Ascension Cathedral broke and killed the tractor driver. After that, the main monastery churches were not seriously touched. Only the St. Nicholas Church was seriously damaged. Only walls pierced by growing grass have remained of it. In 1990, New-Neamts Monastery returned into the bosom of Orthodox Church. After 30 years of silence, here again the prayers and bells sound. Bendersky-Vinkenti became the monastery's holy bishop. A new rector is Archimandrite Doremedont. By their labor, diligence and brothers' prayers, the church life was set. The churches, bell tower and monks' cells were renovated. In the mid-19th, by Father Doremedont, a chapel was laid in the center of monastery in honor of the miraculous icon Our Lady of New-Neamts, designed for small bless of water. It happened so that it became also the place of his earthly comfort. The pupil of Trinity Sergievsk Lavra, the Father Doremedont managed to introduce into the convent the spirit of strict asceticism and fraternal love, combining them with the legacy of Paisi Velichkovsky, an 18th century monk who has done much to revive the monastic tradition and elders' schools. In 1994, the monastery reached 200th anniversary since the elder's death. Since then, the day of Saint Paisi, canonized by Church, is celebrated in the monastery every year. Today, the Brotherhood of New-Neamts follows the charter written 1.5 centuries ago. The second item of this says, internal order, that is the church liturgical regulation, refectory rule, Obedience and another rules will be the same as in the Nyamts Lavra, and made up by blessed elder Father Paisi Velichkovsky. Before closing in early 60s, in the monastery were about 120 monks. Today they are just 40. This is the minimum to be able to carry out all of the relevant worships, the work in progress, and maintain the monastery. Despite this, a small monastery's household is kept in perfect order. Gardens, greenhouses, wine cellars, dry wine manufactured here is used for service. Every day the Divine Liturgy is performed in the monastery and the watchful psalter is read. 11 years within the monastery functions the Chisinau Theological Seminary. Many its students have been given priestly priorate and performed their pastoral ministry in parishes of Moldova, Ukraine, and Romania. Now the New-Neamts Monastery of Holy Ascension is the largest and one of the most beautiful in Moldova. It has stauropedic status, subordinated directly to Chisinau Archdiocese. New-Neamts had to endure much during its history, but always the Lord's words were fulfilled. I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. A lightful Holy Easter. Monks and congregations welcome the Holy Fire. Hundreds of small candles light up from it. The sacred procession is accomplished. Once the Easter service is over, everyone may ring on the bell tower. And the bells of New